I'm talking with Stephen Schick. He is a professor at the University of California, San Diego Music Department. He is a percussionist. He is a conductor. He's conductor of the La Jolla Symphony and Chorus, along with who is chorus master at La Jolla?
David Chase
David
is the choral conductor, yes.
Okay, and we are going to be speaking about an event that's happening, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 1,000 miles north of San Diego in San Francisco, and this is something called Sweet Thunder. And it is the San Francisco Contemporary Ensemble. Tell me the name properly, please.
The name is the San Francisco Contemporary Music Players.
Thank you. Let me repeat that. San Francisco Contemporary Music Players. They're doing their first contemporary music festival at the wonderful, hang on, I always lose my notes. Give me a second. At Fort Mason Center. Now, that is the old 19th century fort in Golden Gate Park, isn't it?
It's actually right on the harbor. It's if you look out from Fort Mason, you're looking right at Alcatraz. It is one of the greatest pieces of real estate in terms of the view and the site in San Francisco, and it's fantastic. Let me just add something to what you said, Dan, and that is, while it's true that this is, if not the first festival we've done, but certainly it has been a long time since we've actually made a festival. But the San Francisco Contemporary Music Players as an ensemble is in its 43rd season, and we are in fact the second oldest contemporary music ensemble in the country after Boston's Musica Viva.
Wow, thank you very much. I had no idea that long.
Yes.
Incredible. Well, the festival, Sweet Thunder, I'm going to ask you where on earth you came up with Sweet Thunder, runs April 24th, Thursday, April 24th, through Sunday, April 27th. All kinds of events. Want some incredible and wonderful ensembles. Jack Quartet, and I'm going to put up a little slideshow with
Sure.
that image of Jack Quartet. I'm fascinated. I looked at the programming, had no idea who any of these composers were. I mean, I feel like such a moron, and I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. This is how avant-garde, if you will, this festival is going to be. ICE, International Contemporary Ensemble. Did I get close?
Yes, exactly right.
Thank you. Is performing on April 25th and also on the 25th, and this takes me back to my Cal Arts days as a student, Morton Subotnick, and I presume he's going to be floating around the festival.
He will be there, and by the way, it's a good day to wish him a happy 81st birthday.
81st. You know, I wondered if he was still alive. Forgive me, Morton.
Oh, he's very much alive, I can assure you.
In the early 70s, as a music major at Cal Arts, I remember only once, kind of wandering through his studio, and it was this dark, cavernous chamber, the walls lined with electronic strobes and lightings and stuff, and I fled in terror at the time. Let's get going. Can you give me what are people going to experience? What is this festival going to be like day to day for that full week from the 24th to the 27th?
Sure, I can give you some idea. First of all, it's a festival that I'm curating with my colleague here at UC San Diego, Rand Steiger. Rand is a fantastic composer, and he came to me with an idea of making an electroacoustic festival. He'd had contact with the Ditson Foundation in New York, and the Ditson Fund, rather, and they were willing to put a sort of foundational grant in place for a West Coast festival. Their other activities have been largely on the East Coast, are major ones, but the West Coast was someplace they wanted to be. Rand suggested that we might think about hosting that under the auspices of the San Francisco Contemporary Music Players, and that's the genesis of that. And it is going to be a festival full of, well, electroacoustic music. There are going to be concerts. You mentioned Jack Quartet on Thursday evening, the 24th. There's ICE on the 25th. The San Francisco Contemporary Music Players ourselves will be on the 26th. On Sunday afternoon, Redfish Bluefish, the percussion group I founded at UC San Diego. And then there are lots of individuals. There's George Lewis and Morton Subotnick in terms of the pioneers of this of electroacoustic music. We have Katharina Rosenberger, a young Swiss composer, will have an installation called Viva Voce set up in the firehouse at Fort Mason. If you know that site, you look out the window of the firehouse, you're looking right across the bay at Alcatraz there. There will be free concerts, including a performance of Compose Yourself, which is the SFCMP initiative to encourage high school composers. So we solicited compositions from high school aged composers from all over the world, and the best of these will be performed on Sunday morning. And then finally, in addition to all of the live performance, there will be a listening room. Tom Erb, another colleague of mine, is putting together, practically 100 hours, I think, of of acousmatic music, and that means tape music or real-time electronics or something that doesn't involve instrumental playing. Claire Chase, the MacArthur winner from last year, will be present with Ice, and she'll play as a soloist. I've commissioned a piece for myself and Pamela Z together. It's going to be an amazing event.
Yeah, well, it sounds it. And also San Francisco, I can't think of a more appropriate city, a very avant-garde, very progressive city to hold this festival in.
Well, absolutely, and of course the history of San Francisco in the world of tape music, with the San Francisco Tape Center, with all of the things that were happening at Mills and in Oakland, is a natural place. And there are lots of things happening today. We're including local musicians, Steve Adams of Rova, Ed Campion, who is at UC Berkeley, Matt Ingalls at SF Sound, Pamela Z. So there will be a mixture of the most recent and local music, and we're also doing classics. We'll do Poème électronique and Désert of Edgar Varese. So I think if you actually came to this thing from beginning to end, you would have sampled the widest possible array of electroacoustic music, including some of the composers that you mentioned that are not household names, but others who very much are, Varese, Cayesariaho, and many others.
Yeah. And also, you've chosen a very interesting, very informal venue from what I recollect from Zoom years ago. But I'm imagining a picnicking sort of environment even. The pavilion is open. I mean, there's an opportunity to wander, to visit other exhibits. I presume, are there going to be any kind of demonstrations and all that kind of
There
stuff?
will be some electronic instruments and some sort of vintage machines on display. But basically, there are three main performance sites. There's the Firehouse with the Rosenberger installation Viva Voce. There's the Fleet Room that will be a kind of ongoing listening center. You can come in and listen to tape music. But the concert space is, in fact, the pavilion itself. We are refitting the 50,000 square foot pavilion as a sort of main stage concert space. And so in addition to those places, we loved the idea of being at Fort Mason because it means that there are Greens is there, for example. There, you can go have a meal, a vegetarian meal. You can have a cup of coffee someplace. You can talk to Morton Subotnick. You can chat up George Lewis. You can ask Claire Chase what she eats for breakfast that possibly makes her as fantastic as she really is. So there will be a lot of chance, not just for concerts, but really to have human interactions around this.
Yeah, and you said chants, and I immediately thought chants music and so on. Anything at all?
Not so far as I know. I mean, when you're working with electroacoustic music, there's an element of chance no matter what you do.
Yeah. I'm going to throw out the phone number right now for ticket sales. Area code in the San Francisco area code 415-278-9566. This festival is called Sweet Thunder, April 24th, Thursday through Sunday, April 27th. What'd you do? Sit around and have a couple gin and tonics to come up with Sweet Thunder? What is that?
No, I think that probably Shakespeare sat around and had a couple of gin and tonics, gins and tonic, to think of that. It's a line from Midsummer Night's Dream. Such sweet thunder, so musical a discord. And it's, first of all, a line from Shakespeare, and secondly, it's a great piece by Duke Ellington, who borrowed that time. He called it "Such Sweet Thunder," which is the bigger quotation from Shakespeare. And we couldn't call it "Such Sweet Thunder" because people would come expecting Ellington, so we simply shortened it to "Sweet Thunder."
Uh-huh. And will there be any? You know what I mean? Any big explosive pieces on a?
You know that there will be. I mean, there are most of those pieces that I rattled off to you have explosive moments. Certainly, the performances will be superb.
That's wonderful. And let's just give me just a little idea. You've been at UC San Diego for how long? And give me a little overview of that department because it's very particularly known as a contemporary music center.
I arrived here 24 years ago.
Wow.
So I've been here for a little while, but I came in as a sort of second-generation faculty member, and on the heels, as it were, of Robert Erickson and Will Ogden, Kenneth Gaburo, the great sort of American experimentalist tradition that's produced a lot of California musicians. Paul Drescher, the great Bay Area composer, came from our department. Mark Dresser, the bass player, left here as a graduate, went to New York, and now is back teaching. And so it is a department which has been devoted for more than 40 years to the pursuit of contemporary music, and exclusively the pursuit of contemporary music. But of course, what that means to different people is quite different. So sometimes, even when somebody may play a piece of 19th century music, he or she approaches it with the same kind of progressive mindset and the same sort of experimental zeal that we would reserve for something where the ink is still wet.
Well, that was probably one of the most amazing explanations I've ever heard. And let me just ask, you also are a conductor of the La Jolla Symphony.
I am.
And we had a conversation a little bit before. We don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I presume you're programming some fairly contemporary music. In fact, the orchestra has won some awards for contemporary music programming.
Indeed it has, and we play contemporary music very much. Well, we play it without apology. We play it without the idea that it is
That's
a box to be ticked on a grant application. We play it because it's necessary. We play it because every piece of music was contemporary at one point. We did a performance last year where we played the Cage 4 minutes and 33 seconds and then went without a pause into the Eroica. Because, and I'm not sure which is more provocative.
We're talking about the minutes of silence, yes?
4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence, and then those first two E-flat major chords of Beethoven that just are like two uppercuts to you if you hear it out of that context. We've played Varese, we've played Xenakis, and we do this just simply without saying to people, oh, this will be cod liver oil, brace yourself, you might not like it, but we really need to do it. I was just for 2 weeks with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, and we also played half the program was contemporary. And I found there, but I found in the entirety of my life, that if you frame this music, in other words, if you simply open the door for people, not make it a test of one's intelligence or one's experience, simply say, what you feel about this will be valid no matter what you feel. But notice how much there is to have feelings about. Notice how provocative this is. You get incredible responses, and the same thing was true. We played a new piece of John Luther Adams just before a Rossini overture in St. Paul last week. And apropos John Luther Adams, my best friend, a good day to wish him congratulations for his Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, and so you do a lovely mix of contemporary music and some of the classics. That's nothing particularly new, but I think you said earlier very appropriately, without apology.
Right.
And modern managements of symphony orchestras worry themselves silly about whether or not to program contemporary work, and as a result, we have programming that is just dull and duller and duller.
Well, I've heard lots of concerts that have contemporary music on them that were very badly programmed. And so when you hear that, when you hear a bad concert, unfortunately what happens is that people will say, oh, well, I simply don't like contemporary music.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the concert either. And it's not because it's contemporary music. I think there's somehow a reframing has to take place. If you go to the movies and you see a movie that you don't care for, even if you are moved to walk out of the theater, you would never say to yourself, okay, that's it. No more movies for me for the rest of my life. But somehow we've got it into our heads, or maybe we've instructed by an apologetic tone of voice, we've instructed our audiences that if they don't like a piece of contemporary music, then it's contemporary music writ large that they don't like. When in point of fact, you can hear a bad piece, or you can hear a piece that doesn't belong in a program. There are lots of ways in which that might not work. But I think if you make vibrant programs, and you do it unapologetically, people will like it. By the way, I'll just say also as a conclusion, it goes both ways. The historical boundary is a challenge for ensembles that play contemporary music as well. Is there any reason for a contemporary music ensemble not to play Ravel, or to play, not to play Schoenberg or Webern, or music from the early 20th century that people oftentimes you can't get a grant for, or you can't, get a festival ticket to, or something like that. So I think that the historical boundary is the last great divide.
That's wonderful because, again, we spoke a little earlier, and in Europe, European orchestras program a great deal of contemporary music, and the audiences are jamming the theaters in Europe. Of course, there's a longer tradition, but in America, I think it's just been, as you may have said, a kind of attitude. To program contemporary music without apology is the big step forward. And then also, as you said, to have very interesting programming. You gave a wonderful example with La Jolla.
Well, I'll just also say that it feels like the least friendly thing you can do to someone is underestimate him.
Yes.
And so when you look at your audience and you say, you're probably not up for this, or we'll play contemporary music, but it's going to be, in quotes, likable, or something like that, then really what you're saying to your audience is, we don't really think you're smart enough, or interesting enough, or worthy enough to give the things that we care about.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the music of Xenakis. I love the music of Steve Reich also. It's not a stylistic issue. And so if I feel passionately about that music, I'll program it for my audience because it's a friendly thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking of Jacaranda in Los Angeles area, a chamber ensemble in Los Angeles. They program very, very interesting repertoire, and they're having huge audiences.
Yeah, of course they are.
So
Because it's interesting.
may the timid take note
Yes, indeed.
of our conversation. Stephen Schick, may I thank you very, very much for giving me a few minutes. It's the end of your day down in San Diego. Let's just
Oh,
get
would that it were.
Oh, really? Oh,
Oh,
so,
yes.
so sorry.
For coffee of 5 in an hour and a half.
What, with the student orchestra or with La Jolla?
With the La Jolla Symphony.
Oh, wonderful. I love that symphony. Wonderful.
It's a good one.
Sweet Thunder is the name of the festival, a week long, April 24th, Thursday through Sunday, April 27th, at Fort Mason Center Festival Pavilion and Environs in the San Francisco, wonderful San Francisco. Tickets, the telephone number to call is 415 in the San Francisco zone, 278-9566. Is there anything I've left out? You looked at
You certainly haven't, and it's been wonderful to talk to you, Dan.
Many, many thanks again. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.